Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and this evening I want to get more into an educational type of video. And yes, I am still on politics, but what I'm doing is allowing individuals to view this content so that they would be more informed on how the process works. Many of us go out, vote, and we vote, particularly Black people. Black people vote on symbology. It's because a person looks like you. They want that person who looks like you. If they've never seen a Black person in power, they want that person to be the first Black person in power. However, they have to understand the policies of what that Black person is voting for. And Black people tend to vote on identity politics. This is why you have a lot of your Democratic cities, they're run poorly. But what I'm going to teach you tonight is how the Electoral College process works. Many people don't know. What I do, go into a PowerPoint. I'm also going to go into the definition because it's very important because, believe it or not, we just had the 2024 election. Now we're going to have the midterm election. Now, the midterm election is a very important election. This is when we elect new congressional members of the House and Senate. Now, of course, there are 435 House seats up every 2 years, and every 6 years, you may have 50 senators whose term is up. Now, if you need to understand the terms of the houses of Congress, I'm going to tell you right now. When you have House members, each House member, they serve 2-year terms, whereas your senators serve 6-year terms. And bottom line, your congressional Senate and your congressional House, which are both chambers of Senate, where they are the what we call the legislative branch. They actually make laws. They're the ones who take a bill, put it out there for debate. They bounce it between both chambers of Congress, and then they send it up to the president to either sign or veto. So, what I'm going to get into right now as I share my screen, we're going to talk more about the Electoral College. Now, a lot of people don't understand the business of the Electoral College. Now, the Electoral College is used for presidential elections. Now, what is the Electoral College? Now, the Electoral College is not a place, not like a brick and mortar college. Instead, it's a process. Now, the founding fathers established it in the Constitution in part as a compromise between the election of the president by a vote in Congress and election of the president by a popular vote of qualified citizens. So, what is the process? Well, the Electoral College process consists of a selection of the electors, the meeting of the electors where they vote for the president and vice president, and the counting of the electoral votes by Congress. Now, the question is, how many electors are there? And how are they distributed amongst the states? Now, you remember, each state does not have the same amount of Electoral College votes. They utilize the population. So this is why you have areas like New York and California, Texas, Florida, Illinois. They have large populations. So basically, here's how it all works. The Electoral College consists of 538 electors, and a majority of 270 electoral votes is required to elect the president. Now, your state, now, something that you need to know, every state, including Alaska and Hawaii, they all have 2 senators. Now, let's move on. Your state has the same number of electors as it does member in its congressional delegation, one for each member in the House of Representatives, plus 2 senators. Now, the District of Columbia is allocated 3 electors and treated like the state for purposes in the Electoral College under the 23rd Amendment of the Constitution. So, for this reason, in the following discussion, the word state also refers to the District of Columbia and executive to the state governors and the mayor of the District of Columbia. So, how are electors chosen? What are their qualifications? How do they decide what to vote for? Well, very simple. Each candidate running for president in your state has their own group of electors, known as a slate. Now, the slates are generally chosen by the candidate's political party in your state, but state laws vary on how electors are selected and what their responsibilities are. Now, what happens in the general election and why should people vote? Well, the general election is held every 4 years on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. This is when you vote. This is when you vote for your presidential candidate, and you are actually voting for your candidate's preferred electors. Now, again, with the exception of Maine and Nebraska, most states have a winner takes all system that awards the electors to the presidential candidate whose state wins the popular vote. Again, I just mentioned it. However, Maine and Nebraska each have a variation of proportional representation. Now, I believe Nebraska is getting ready to go to the winner takes all system. That's what I'm hearing. Now, what happens on the election, the day of the election, we all go out and vote. And this is where everything gets very tricky. You have the media. Now, what happens after all of the votes are counted? The media doesn't tell you who actually won. What they do is give you a projection based on how many popular votes that each candidate has within that state. And what I'm saying is, you have states where you might only have 45% of the precincts reporting. The media is going to call it for that state. That's a projection. That is wrong. How can you project something when everybody hasn't finished voting? And that's where the mainstream media needs to be taken out of the electoral process, because they make a lot of guesses and sometimes their calls are wrong. It's where polls are wrong as well. Well, what you need to know is the real votes are sent in from the electors to the Secretary of States to basically certify all the votes. And then each state sends the certified votes to the vice president. Now, what happens after the general election? Well, after the general election, your state's executive prepares a certificate of ascertainment listing the names of all the individuals on the slates of each candidate. Now, the certificate of ascertainment also lists the number of votes each individual received and shows which individuals were appointed as your state's electors. Your state's certificate of ascertainment is sent to NARA as part of the official records of the presidential election. Now, the meeting of the electors takes place on the first Tuesday after the second Wednesday in December after the general election. The electors meet in their respective states where they cast their votes for president and vice president on separate ballots. Your state's electors' votes are recorded on a certificate of vote, which is prepared at a meeting by the electors. Your state's certificate of vote is sent to Congress where the votes are counted and to NARA as part of the official records of the presidential election. Each state's electoral votes are counted in a joint session of Congress on the 6th of January in the year following the meeting of the electors. Members of the House and Senate meet in the House chamber to conduct the official count of the electoral votes. The Vice President of the United States, as President of the Senate, presides over the count in a strictly ministerial manner and announces the results of the vote. The President of the Senate then declares which persons, if any, have been elected President, Vice President of the United States. The President-elect takes the oath of office and is sworn in as the President of the United States on January 20th in the year following the general election. And we just had that when President Trump was sworn in. Now, again, basically, the information I gave you, you may have some electors that may switch their votes as well. And it's very important that you understand this because what you see on the media, they're unofficial results. They're unofficial results. And as you saw it, it took longer. I mean, it was a couple of months for California to finish counting all of their congressional and senatorial votes. It took Pennsylvania between, I believe, McDonald and Casey. Some of these votes were really tight. In fact, the president was already sworn in before Pennsylvania finished counting their votes. Now, to me, we need a better system. I believe that all the votes should be in by 12:01 election day. We have far seen too many opportunities for individuals to cheat in an election. But you have to understand what you're voting for. You have to understand what the process is. You know, some people, well, my vote doesn't count. Your vote does count because, again, there's a compromise between the Electoral College and the popular vote. If your state gets the most popular votes, then if you have a winner takes all system, then that candidate wins all the Electoral College votes. And again, you need 270. Now, what if it's tied? Well, if it's tied 269, 269, then everything goes into Congress and they will vote on the president. That's never happened. But we saw some inklings of it in 2000 when Bush and Gore were running. Thought that was going to happen. Never happened. Now, here's something you need to understand too. A candidate can win the popular vote, but lose the Electoral College. But the president is selected based on the Electoral College. Example, Al Gore won the popular vote to George Bush in 2000, but lost the Electoral College. That debacle that went down there with hanging chads in 2000 in Florida, this is why machines were put in place, and don't trust some of those machines either. Votes can still be manipulated. Then Trump in 2016, he beat Hillary. Now, Hillary was saying that Trump was an illegitimate president. No, he wasn't. He won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote. That's happened twice in my lifetime, and it's happened, it's funny, 15 years apart, 15, 16 years apart. I did not believe I would see it, but I have seen it twice. Now, let's share my screen and let's get into the Electoral College again, how the Electoral College works. And then you have to understand, why was it created? Well, the framers questioned whether uninformed citizens would select an adequate leader for their nation. If the people chose the wrong president, the EC could override the vote. Also, wanted to establish a role for the states in the electoral process, or we can say the election process. That's known as federalism. Also, a candidate with an overwhelming majority of votes in one part of the country couldn't be elected by a slim overall popular majority. Now, the United States Constitution, again, it outlines how the president is to be elected. Article 2, section, it says the Electoral College. You have 538 people called electors responsible for electing the president and vice president. So basically, you have a number of members in the House that totals 435, and a number of members in the Senate, which totals 100. So that's 535 plus 3. Now, you know, Washington does not have any, I'm talking about Washington, D.C., senators. 50 states each have 2 senators, where the 50 states plus the District of Columbia have 438 people who they call electors, or people in Congress. That's where they get 538. Now, the 23rd Amendment allowed Washington, D.C. to have 3 members in Congress for 3 electoral college votes. Now, the number of electoral college votes each state has is determined by, again, the number of representatives plus the number of senators, and that equals the total number of electoral college votes. Now, again, each state has 2 senators. Now, what you need to understand about the number of representatives, that also changes with the census. So each state has at least 1 representative. It's determined by population at the time of the census. Now, this is why the Democrats want illegals to come in. You see, the next census to come in is the 2030 census. So the Democrats believe that, okay, they go ahead and they count bodies. Well, they won't lose any House seats, because the more House seats you have, based on your population, the more electoral college votes that you have. And it could be an advantage for you, for the party, when it comes to the presidential elections. Now, until 2016, well, Utah 2016, presidential election 2010 census data. So, want an example of how this works? So this is Utah right here. Utah 2016 presidential election. Now, you think about it. The 2024 election was represented by the 2020 census data. The 2016 election was based on the 2010 census data. So what I'm going to give you right here is an example. This is Utah for 2016. Now, here's how it all works. Now, you have 4 representatives for Utah plus 2 senators, and the total number of electoral college votes equals 6. Now, the number of representatives are congressional House members plus the number of senators, and that's how you get the number of electors. Now, this is the 2016 Electoral College map. And as you see, each state. Now, the states that have blue Electoral College results, that's for the Democratic candidate. The states that have red Electoral College votes, that is for the Republican candidate. Now, if you look at C-SPAN's 2016 Electoral College map, you can see how the Electoral College votes look on a map. Now, basically, this is not all the way true, because I can tell you right now, Hillary Clinton did not win Pennsylvania. She did not win Florida. She did not win Ohio. She did not win Michigan, Wisconsin, and of course, she didn't win Iowa. But basically, what I'm showing you is what the map looks like on election day. This is what the media presents. Now, if you look at all of these numbers right here, you have 38 right here. Now, again, Texas has 36 congressional members plus 2 senators. Now, you look at the bigger states right here with the greatest population. The states with the greatest population, they have more congressional seats. Now, it's very important that you understand that, particularly when the midterms. Now, with the midterms, all of your congressional seats and senatorial seats, there's no electoral college. Everything is based on the popular vote. Again, this is why California wants to put illegals on a 2030 census. But what they don't understand is when they have the election in 2028, they're not going to be using the 2030 census. They're going to be using the 2020 census. Why? Because you're still in that decade. The census comes out every 10 years. So back in the 2010s, well, the election of 2012, that was based on the 2010 census. The election of 2016, now the election of 2020 was based on the 2020 census. But there's not going to be a presidential election in 2030. It's going to be in 2032, which then that is when the 2030 census will be utilized. That's why it's very important for everybody when that census comes out to make sure you fill out the census and send it in so you can be counted, because the amount of seats that you have can be affected. So if the population in California goes down or gets reduced by the next census, they could lose some votes. They're going to lose a couple of House districts. Now, Texas gets a growing population. They could gain more House seats. This is how it all works. Again, steps in the Electoral College process. I'm going to give them to you right now. Number 1, popular vote. On election day, voters choose who they want to be president and vice president. So basically, what we're actually choosing are electors, who represent the political party of the candidate that we like. These electors are then supposed to vote for the candidate that wins the popular vote in that given state. Step two, winner takes all. Candidate who wins the popular vote within a state wins all of the electoral votes for that state. 48 states. Again, this is a review. Nebraska and Maine have what we call a proportional system. So each candidate does get some votes. So then, this is where you hear the word democracy. So this is a part of democracy. The majority rules. So the candidate who wins the majority of votes wins the election. You need 270 electoral college votes to win. Now, when we say votes, I'm not talking about popular votes, because you can still, I just gave you two examples, or Bush in 2000, Clinton, Trump in 2016. You have one candidate win the popular vote, but lose the electoral college. But the president and, of course, the vice president are not chosen by way of the popular vote. Now, why is that? We don't want states like New York and California picking the president, because those states are blue states and they will go Democrat. Each state gets representation. That's really the purpose of the Electoral College. Again, you need 270 Electoral College votes to win. Now, your ballot. Now, you have to understand the ballot. A lot of people don't understand the ballot. So, when you look at your ballot, this is going back to 2004 when you had Bush Kerry. Matter of fact, 2004, Bush actually won both the Electoral College and the popular vote. Same instance happened this past election, where Donald Trump won the popular and the Electoral College vote. But this is what your ballot looks like. Again, you have your President of the United States, and then scroll down a little bit. This is when you have your governors. This is very important, because this is, you just don't vote for the president when you look at your ballot. And this is why you need to know who everybody is, from local to state to federal. And then you need to know the ballot initiatives. But here you have the governor, you have the representatives for Congress, you need to know your county attorney, your state representatives, your county commissioners, your register of probate, deeds. All these individuals can have an impact on your life. Most people believe when they go out to vote, they're just voting for the president and vice president. No, in some states, you're even voting for governors. So while the presidential election is going on, you may have some mayoral races, because when it comes to the lower governments, like your state government and your city government, those take place during the off years. Like, okay, after the midterms, what's going to come up? Well, if you don't see everybody on the general election ballot, you'll have other ballots. But besides the presidential election, all the other candidates are chosen by popular vote. But you need to know who those candidates are, what their voting record is before you vote. Now, a number of people today, they vote based on party. We're very partisan. But the process is, right now we're talking about the Electoral College, but I'm giving you an example of what a ballot looks like. Now, step 3, voting, meeting of the electors. Electors meet in each state capital to cast votes for the candidate they represented it. They represent. Again, meeting of electors. Electors meet in each state capital to cast votes for the candidate that they represent, and it's every Monday after the second Wednesday in November. I'm just giving you information that breaks down the information in the article that I gave you. Step 4, counting ballots. Those votes are then sent to the president of the Senate in DC, which the president of the Senate is the vice president. The president of the Senate then counts the votes on January 6th. This is why we had that crazy that January 6th, because of these votes that were counted. So basically, the vice president counts the votes on January 6th before a joint session of Congress is held. Again, I just told you this so you'll remember it. If there happens to be a tie, the president will be decided by the House of Representatives. Now, with the Electoral College, there are flaws with it, but that's okay. There are flaws with everything. But as long as it's effective, then we're going to keep on using it. So, again, I just mentioned this earlier. A person who doesn't win popular vote can be elected president. Now, even before the Bush-Gore election, or there were other elections, this happened way back in the 19th century. You had Jackson and Adams. Well, Jackson won the popular vote, but Jackson wasn't president. J.Q. Adams was president because he won the Electoral College. Hayes won over Tilden because Hayes had more Electoral College votes. Over Cleveland, to Harrison. Harrison was the winner. Now, each loser won the popular vote. Look at the pie graph. Tells you the percent. But then after that, you had Gore and Bush. Now, Gore and Bush was really close. These right here are not really that close. Well, let's say Cleveland, well, they're close in the popular votes. Now, this one wasn't close, but these two were very close. 4.2 million, which is 4,200,000. So Hayes was a winner by 200,000 votes. Now, here's another thing. If the votes are really close because of the Gore-Bush debacle, then we have a lot of recounts, which I don't like recounts because there's always somebody that's going to find a flaw and they're going to try to cheat. It's true. That's what happened in 2020. Okay. The person who doesn't win the popular vote can be elected president. I just mentioned Gore versus Bush, Trump versus Clinton. Now you see both of them had Bush and Gore was really tight. This is why you had recounts. And according to this, it was only a victory by roughly 6,000 votes. 6,000. Then here are all the maps right here. Now let's go back and look at these maps. You look at 1952 and 56. It's all red, wasn't it? All red. Then you look at the change in 1960. 1964 was just about all blue. 68. Now we're probably talking in this era. This is when Ike was running. This is Kennedy. This is Johnson in 64. 68. This is Nixon. 72. This is Nixon. Look, landslide right here. And there were times when California was a red state, Oregon. Look at 76. Carter. Look at 80. People sometimes will ask, was California ever red? Certainly it was red. Some of the other states were red. 1980, Reagan. 84, Reagan. 88, Bush. Then 92, it went to Clinton. 96, Clinton. 2000, Bush. 2004, Bush, because he won against Kerry. 2008, this is Obama. 2012, Obama. That's But those are what the maps look like. So yes, California has been red, Oregon has been red. These maps will show you. Now, history can repeat itself. Not a presidential election. Number two, electors don't have to do what we tell them to. So electors refuse to vote for their party's nominee. Again, 1796, 1820, 1948, 1956, 1960, 1968, 1972, 1976, 1988, 2000, 2004. An elector from Minnesota voted for John Edwards twice, president and then the vice president. And then how did the media get it wrong? Well, I'm going to tell you how the media get it wrong, got it wrong. I'm going to tell you because the media was all in for president elect or the nominee Clinton. That's why they got it wrong. They didn't believe Trump was going to win. Hillary believed that she had it in the bag, and she ended up losing. So the bottom line, that's how the Electoral College process works. And if you have any doubts about what's going on, about what I said, go look it up for yourself. What I'm here to do is give you an avenue so you can understand the process. Because many of us who go out and vote, we're voting on what the person sounds like, what they look like. We're voting from pure emotion. Many of us don't understand politics. We don't take time to understand it. But I will tell you this. Ones who are young, they're always going to vote Democrat because they don't have responsibilities. But when you get responsibilities, then you're going to think a little differently about who you vote for. So I'm just going to say this. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just giving you a perspective based off the information that I researched, and the information I researched is true. Do your own research. But I will tell you this about me. I'm an informed voter. I don't listen to the mainstream media. The mainstream media is in the tank for the Democrats. And they're going to make Trump look bad. I say turn off the mainstream media. Look at where you are today. What state do you live in? I mean, I went to the grocery store today. Items are coming down. I remembered a big bag. We used to call it government cereal. Remember the multi-meal cereal? Well, I went out and bought some Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Just get a bag for $8, $6.99. Gas. Now, I was listening to Anthony Brian Logan the other day. He had a call from California. Said gas is still $4.15, $5.15. Here in Indiana, gas is, I saw $2.84 in some places, $2.99. Depends on where you live. And see, Indiana is a red state, so taxes are going to be cheaper here. And we want to keep it red. So folks from California, you're going to come in this state. You folks from New York, you're going to have to learn the red way here, or you're just going to go right back in that hellhole where you come from. Leave your progressivism, your socialism, and communism. You guys voting for Mamdani? That's saying nigga? You guys shouldn't even be allowed to go into the voting booth. You're going to vote for that guy. The guy who actually called himself African American so he could get into medical school. He's an Indian, sand nigga, camel riding nigga. But he called himself African American. But you got people like Letitia James up there, black. Them sand niggas don't like regular niggas. But all of you communists together, you're going to see how they fuck New York up. Chicago's another city. Look at Philadelphia. They had a strike. With all that trash that was sitting in Philadelphia. See, and I'm putting all this out here because this is what you're voting for. And look at Newsom. Why in the hell did Newsom go to South Carolina? South Carolina is a red state. They're not voting for some Democrat. When he was over there trying to campaign. Now watch some of these politicians. They're fake. They're trying to convince you to vote for them because they're tall. They sound good. The evidence shows itself that Newsom can't run a state. Look at California. Look at the fires that they've had. Yeah, I know there are going to be people out there saying, well, the floods. Well, unfortunately, bad things do occur. But see, I will tell you this. People in the red states, they help each other. The blue states, they start booting up. Because you vote for people like Mamdani, who's a kid himself, 33 years old. He doesn't know anything about politics. He says everything to try to get people on his side to vote for him. No, he won the primary. Now, whatchamacallit, Cuomo, he could be a write-in candidate. I know Sliwa, who was head of the Guardian Angels in New York, he's not going to win. Last Republican in that city was Giuliani. Right? Giuliani ran it pretty good. Giuliani was there when they had 9/11. But after that, you know, a couple of other guys, not Blasio, but there was another guy, Bloomberg. Bloomberg was pretty good. Blasio was terrible. Eric Adams, he wasn't great either. But Eric Adams is running as an independent. And I'm just showing you, I don't even live in New York. And that Kathy Oakham or whatever her name is, lousy governor. But see, because you New Yorkers, you vote for high taxes, you vote for socialism. You get the government you get based on the lack of knowledge that you have. You can't vote emotional. That's why I see a lot of these blacks who are running cities, they don't know how to run them. They don't know how to run them at all. And I'm definitely, well, you do have one black woman. She's actually the mayor of Lawrence, Indiana. From what I hear, that's actually being run pretty good. But you know what? It's not that many people in Lawrence, Indiana. See, what it is, I live here in Indianapolis. Indianapolis and Marion County, they're all under what we call the Unigov system, except for Beach Grove, Speedway, Lawrence, and I believe Southport. They're part of Marion County, but they have their own mayors. Rest of Marion County, everything is shared down there at the city building on Washington Street. But she's the only one. Got that Indian woman up there in Illinois, Philadelphia, Baltimore's not being run good, Atlanta's not being run good, DC, Detroit, Gary, Milwaukee, Atlanta. I did say Atlanta. Like at Minnesota, Tim Walz, not running it good. And so you have to change the mindset of the people. And most of the people here in America, they really don't take place. Like, I was talking to my good old sweet Chuck, talking to somebody, one of her friends. And one of her friends had to ask her, vote for Trump? No, she voted for Trump. Of course I voted for Trump. Because I knew what the deal was. And see, these are people, the ones who vote for the Democrat, they all want free shit. They don't participate in anything but voting for that free shit. That's all they vote for. They're not working. And again, with this so-called beautiful bill, it's not perfect. And I'll tell you why the taxes on overtime and the taxes on tips, they expire in 2028. It could be a strategic play. It could be a strategic play because the person, I believe it could be J.D. Vance running, or it could be the individual from Florida. They could be running for president. They could use that. Remember, see, if you vote for this, you could get your no tax on overtime, no tax on tips up to $25,000. And see, if that bill hadn't been voted for, the tax cuts would have expired. But most people don't know that. So you have a lot of people here who they're consumers, they're not buyers. See, a buyer is going to look at, where am I going to get the best price, the best quality? And you don't hear them talking about the tariffs because they're working. People forget Reagan used tariffs, but other countries have used tariffs on us. But the United States has been paying the bulk of everything. We all know that. But you have individuals out here who don't know it. And most Americans buy junk anyway. What do they know about the stock market? And most Americans don't even have a 401k plan. But see, when they talk about Medicaid, I believe Medicaid or Medicare is used by the states, and then Medicaid is used by the feds. But what happens, the states will utilize the Medicare, and then the federal government reimburses the states. I believe that's how that works. But see, if you're going to get on any type of government assistance and you are able-bodied, that's what's in the bill. See, the media is deflecting because the media is not telling you everything. They're not cutting out Social Security. They're not cutting out Medicare or Medicaid. They're just making people who are illegal, you can't be on Medicare or Medicaid. People who are able-bodied who are receiving Medicare, Medicaid. If you're able-bodied, you have to work at least 20 hours. 20 hours is nothing. I work 40 hours. I work longer than that, 20 hours. And then you have to also, I believe it's every 6 months, you have to prove your income. Everybody can't live off the fat of the land. And that's what the Democrats always promised. See, the Democrats didn't vote for this bill because they didn't want to vote for this bill. They want to hand everybody free entitlements. So those people will vote for them. Keeps them in power. See, Democrats have no policies. And is that going to hurt the Democrats in the midterm? Well, what scares me is you have a number of emotional voters, very emotional voters, even ones who voted for Trump, MAGA. Well, they're not real MAGA. See, if you are on board with Trump, and then this Epstein bullshit, I don't care about that. I care about the economy. I care about low taxes. Now, the programs, the elderly, they're the ones who should be getting the benefits, especially the ones who put into the system. See a young person walking around having a bunch of babies, living off a cycle of welfare, not being productive. That's the problem. So the Democrats want people to be non-productive, and then they're going to say, well, you won't have anybody doing the agriculture for you. Well, yeah, you will. Americans will do it. You just have to pay them. You see, when you have all these illegals doing these jobs, it keeps wages down. Everybody knows that. It's almost like the Democrats portray that they're for the people, but they're not for the people. That's why you got to watch some people. They talk with a forked tongue, and then you got to look at their actions. See, the Democrats are just for, they don't want structure. They talk about the patriarchy. They don't want it where a man is running anything. And see, when you don't have a man running anything, you get the women running everything. Everything's chaotic. Everybody knows it. This is why you shouldn't give women all that power, because they abuse it. They don't know how to handle power. Many women aren't responsible enough for their own homes. Many women are children. Everybody knows this. You have a number of women who don't want women in power. They know it. Look at this Ketanji Jackson in the Supreme Court. DEI hire. Joe Biden said, I'm going to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. This Ketanji Jackson didn't even know what a woman was, but she's on the Supreme Court. This is what happens when you got stupid people out there. And to me, they should, to me, they could do it if they wanted to. It might take a lot. To me, the working people should be voting. If you're on government assistance, you shouldn't even be allowed to vote. And I'm talking about able-bodied people, and they can find out. Should be allowed to vote. I don't believe in most instances women should be allowed to vote, because women vote for stupid shit. They're the ones who are more tolerant of all this alphabet, and they want to go progressive. They want to go communist because they believe in equity. Or what it is, you got a number of women out here, they want to be a man, but they don't want to be a man. So they love the power that they believe a man has, but they don't want the responsibility. That's the problem. But you have a number of them who are going to vote for that Democratic candidate. Then you have people like Jamal Bryant, all these other niggas out there who are on the plantation. That's generally what you have. You see, when you have many people out here who don't understand voting, like the last election, the reason why Biden got in there is because people didn't like Biden, they didn't like Trump. Everybody knows that. And stupid people shouldn't be allowed to have the mic. These protesters, what were they really protesting? And now they're going gangbusters down there in Mexico City. You know why? Illegal immigration. You see, they don't want it either. But they want us to have it. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Because too many of you are watching the mainstream media, and the mainstream media doesn't want you to see that. See, the mainstream media doesn't even want to report on the market. You don't hear anything bad about the stock market, do you? No. Because you have a number of people. See, when you're a consumer and when you're an employee, you basically, all you're doing, you're going out there, you think you know what's going on, but you really don't. In your mind, everything is in your mind. It's all delusion. See, the Democrats present you a delusion. Like equality, there's no such thing as equality. Equity, you know what equity is? Equity is not equal opportunity. It's equal result. And see, that's communism. Start to be Pol Pot, Genghis Khan, those individuals, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez. That's why a lot of these countries don't like America. America still has the greatest economy in the world. Those other countries have to depend on America. But see, the voters don't understand that because many of them are stupid. We have a lot of uninformed voters. And that's why any Negro out here that tries to talk to me about politics, I leave them alone because they don't know anything about politics. Because they don't, number one, they're only in the process when it comes to voting, but most of them are employees. They're not managing anything. They don't have a business. See, business-minded people aren't going to vote for communism or socialism. No, they're not. And I'm not against unions, but unions are big business as well. Unions want members. And guess who gets most of that pot of money? The big bosses. Unions are corporations as well. Certainly they will help you. Depends on what local you're in. But outside that, they don't care about you. I know I was an AFSCME. I was the steward in my local. Yeah. But you have to understand what's going on out here. Most people don't understand. They don't even care about what's going on. And we have a type of people, more or less, they have an immature mindset. They don't understand economics. They don't understand civics. And see, when you vote Democrat, this is what they want you to be. They want you to be stupid because they want to do the thinking for you. I don't want the government to do any thinking for me because that makes me believe that I am in prison. So when you see the Gavin Newsoms come out, be Snagglepuss, exit stage right, get out of the way. Because he's going to do nothing but talk a bunch of bullshit. That's all he's going to do. He didn't run California. Karen Bass. All of them trying to blame Trump. When you fucked up your state. So you people out there in California, New York, you keep voting communist in. And you got that Mamdani or whatever his name is, he said he was going to ignore Trump's orders. You do that. See what happens to you. You'll be in there breaking up rocks in Rikers Island. Of course, getting drilled in the ass too, because they're going to take your sweet ass and just nail you to the wall. Or tear your hemorrhoids out. Some of them hardened criminals. People like Mamdani, you watch them. You want to give away the whole city. You're talking about government grocery stores. But see, when you have a lot of voters who believe that, and Letitia James, why needs to put her ass in jail? And I hope it happens. All these sisters out there, they've shown that they can't run anything. They think they can run something. And I'm not talking about every one of them. A number of you sisters out there, you don't like black men. We all know that. I'm not saying all of you, but a number of you. You don't. But that's okay. That's okay. We'll go over there to old Brad, see what he's going to do for you. Again, he's not going to put up with the stuff that a black man's going to put up with either. Oh, no. Oh, no. And he's going to vote totally different than you vote. Go to. If you get with a white guy, you better get with a Democratic white guy. Don't get with a Republican white boy. And see, the Democrats create nothing but delusion, lies, deception. That's what they do. Actually, I'm going to change this title in this video. I'm going to just say, what is the Electoral College and some social topics. That's what I'm talking about. You know, there are a lot of people here on social media put themselves out there thinking that they're going to be stars. Not going to be a star. It's not going to happen, Cap. See, my position is I want people to be informed voters, though. I want them to understand the social issues. I don't want you listening to the mainstream media. I want you to do some thinking on your own. And then it's not how much you consume, are you consuming quality? It's being a better buyer. It's like I'm busy searching for an apartment. Getting ready to move out of Indianapolis. Yeah, I'm getting ready to move again. What do I want in that apartment? How am I going to be an effective buyer or effective renter? And even you have to do that when you have a job. When you have a job, I'm just going to tell you this, continue to put resumes out there just in case you don't last. Because they'll get rid of you quick. And even government jobs aren't as safe as they used to be. No, they're not. But the bottom line is, you gotta understand yourself, where you are. Everybody's not gonna think like you, everybody's not gonna be like you. Everybody comes from different environments, even people who live in the same environment. Their household might be different. Well, I'm just gonna tell you this. Bottom line, when it comes to government, you gotta know about the government, how the process works. You got some people up here saying that the bill was horrible. That's what most of us voted for. But see, it was not necessarily the bill, it's when Congress put their hands in that bill. And they made a lot of changes. But certainly you can go back in any bill and make changes. Bottom line is, right now, the economy is better. Democrats won't even win the midterms. Because now when you put people like Mondani in there, blatant communists, that's what we fought against, communism. But you get people that don't participate in what goes on every day in this country, i.e., working or being productive. These are the ones lying around, bucking around, making babies, individuals drinking, smoking it up, spending their money on dumb shit. That's what they do. Then they get up on social media and tell all their business. The mindset of a number of people today is adolescent. That's what it is. I mean, a 50-year-old today that I've seen still living in trying to be a teenager. They don't want to be responsible. There are people out here that don't want to grow old, but you're going to grow old. But they don't want to hear that. They want to be able to run around and do what they want to do. The churches, black churches are failures. There are people like Jamal Bryant out there. When you tell somebody like Cam Newton he's got nice legs, that's some gay shit. He's supposed to be a pastor, but see these pastors, who are these pastors? Customers in the black church, the black women. Most of us black men, we're not going to church. You know, we only did because we were told the church was better. It meant something. Today it's just nothing but a money crunch and the pastor just telling their congregation what they want to hear. Then that pastor is using God to go mess with some of the individuals in the congregation, males and females. You think, I remember Pastor Bryant, he was up in Baltimore. He got ousted for messing around with church members up there. So they sent his ass down to Atlanta. I believe he's in Martin Luther King's church. Dr. Bryant. Yeah, yeah. People don't know that. This is why you cannot listen to everybody. Because it's going to come up here. They use this platform to air out all their grievances to make themselves feel good. Some things you got to keep at home. This is why the Facebooks and Instagrams, uh, and they're really not good for dysfunctional people. Again, you have a number of people who are in arrested development, delusional. Look at Kendra G. Kendra G thinks she looks good. Kendra G is fake too. Caked up with makeup, fake hair, trying to talk some. Now Kendra G can be all right. I've seen her without her fake hair. She's pretty damn good when she wants to be, but her attitude, you know, Gen Xer, because I see a lot of what goes on, and I don't use black community. I say individuals, period, particularly from the city and suburbs, my age and down, they're the ones with the most arrested development, the most delusion. They're the ones who wanted careers. They're the ones who, you know, people like Tiffany Cross and was that broad that got fired from NBC with the short blonde hair? Uh, Joy Reid. You got all these individuals. There's poor taste. Their ratings were low. They were part of the mainstream media. The mainstream media doesn't produce anything but propaganda. This is why when it comes to politics, you actually want to look at what's going on out there instead of listening to politics. But because if you turn on TV, you're going to think everything Trump does is bad. You have individuals who don't understand polls. You have individuals that don't understand money. Stupid people. Stupid people vote. Stupid people get on YouTube, Facebook. Bottom line is, just want to say this. You need to be knowledgeable about what's going on around you, whether it's on a job, socially, whether you're voting, religiously, your education. Because the five powers of society, if you want that to change, and we need people to actually change the culture. So it's all been ruined by individuals who never donned a military uniform, who went to college, had useless degrees. Now they got a bunch of debt and they want us to pay for it. That's the problem. They're delusional. I mean, when Ketanji Jackson, a DEI Supreme Court justice, doesn't know what a woman is, that just told me what happened in the Joe Biden administration. And they put Kamala Harris. Yeah, woman of color. I knew she wasn't going to be president. And the media just manipulated the polls to make it look like she was winning. She wasn't winning. They also made it look like she was turning out a lot of people. She wasn't turning out anybody. She wasn't. We know it. You got people like Hakeem Jeffries, Democrats. Who would want to see him in power? See, the Democrats have no policies, nothing. Their only thing is Trump is bad and I want to give away free entitlements to illegals and people who aren't working so they'll vote for us to keep us in power. That is their platform. And if you disagree with what they say, they got an issue with it. The bottom line is they don't make sense at all. Stupid people. And you have individuals, even the ones who voted for Trump, some of them are stupid people too. Why? Because these are the ones who were in the middle, were on the fence, and when they hear something from the other side, that see they're swayable. This is why you don't want people on the fence. I'm either here or here. I'm not straddling the fence. But these are people who are very emotional. Emotions override critical thinking. I will say this. Life isn't fair. All I've ever asked was for an opportunity. On equality, equal opportunity. You're not going to get equity, equal results. It's never going to happen, Cap. Bottom line, I'm just going to ask you this. In this country, already giving you the information about how the Electoral College works. So you have to look at what you're going to be voting for in the midterms. You want a continuation of what we have now, pretty decent economy. You want to go back to where all I hear is trans this, trans that, women this, women that, anti-male, anti-family. Want to go back to that? Well, if you want to go back to that, you want to live under that regime, you continue to vote Democrat. Well, my job here is to make sure that the Democrats, at least the far left Democrats, are never in power again. Although my channel is small, I still have an audience. Pretty smart audience. So the question that you need to know. Not who are you going to vote for? What are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for good country? Or are you going to vote the same thing you've been voting for the last 60 to 70 years? Progressivism. And under progressivism, you have all this alphabet community, misandry, racism, sexism, anti-children, anti-business, anti-American, anti-legal immigration. They want illegal immigration. And they're anti-production. Bottom line, you ask yourself this. Who would you rather have in power? One who believes strongly in communism, where the government runs your entire life, keeps you on that plantation, or one who still believes in the Constitution, about First Amendment and Second Amendment. This is the only country you're going to get that. You go to any other country and start talking about their government, you may be executed. You don't get the type of elections in other countries like you do here. That's why you have Putin. He's been in power for a long time and other dictators. But again, you still have these Democrats out here who basically they worship communism. So I just got to ask you this. The choice is going to be yours. Want to live under a communist regime? Or do you want to live under a regime that's capitalistic? I know capitalism has its flaws, a lot of competition. But if you have the right skills, capitalism always works. For people who don't have any skills and they don't want to do work, yes, they're going to always choose communism. But the bottom line is, I'm just going to tell you this. I'd rather be a producer than a lazy person. Because here in America, might not want to hear it, even with its ups and downs. No matter what race you are, yes, I know blacks have had it hard here. And you blacks, I'll tell you this too. Blacks have done some good things, and you're not looking at the good things you've done. You keep looking at, well, the white man did this, the white man. No. We did it to ourselves by accepting integration. We had it going well. The blacks wanted to integrate. But the bottom line is this. You want to be free thinking? You want to stay on the plantation? The choice is yours. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, you check out my second channel, the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And also, let me give a shout out to some of these other channels. Give a shout out to Cheese Mode TV, Mr. O with the info. Those two channels giving you nothing but serious man talk, salty balls, the contractor, Tito. Those seem to be the only, and Pastor Dow. Those are the only channels I will listen to right here on the black side of YouTube. Of course, there's ABL. Yeah, there's also Will Johnson, BCP, Barry Cunningham. Want some information for those channels? Even Angry Man. He's got some good stuff. Go to people that are going to give you the right information because they're also on YouTube. They have bigger platforms. So they can take what I'm saying and get it out there as well. Everybody who has a platform and you're speaking sense, somebody will notice you. You don't need a big channel. You just need to be a good thinker. Utilize common sense. Now, here's where you can find me. 411 Talk Zone radio show. You can find me on YouTube, of course, X, formerly Twitter. You can also find me on True Social and Rumble. And I'm going to try to upload some videos. I have to get an account, look to getting some videos out there on Getter. Now, I had other ones, Parler and MeWe, but nobody was really looking at my videos on those channels. Those platforms are very small. But now, for the QCIS channel, which I'm going to do a video tomorrow, and I've been doing videos on Saturday and Sunday. Makes it much easier. So putting out a video tomorrow on the QCIS channel. Here's where you can find me. Find me on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. And just so you understand, when individuals, don't worry about what somebody else has. Be blessed for what you have. Too many of us worry about what we don't have and what somebody else has. That's where the envy and jealousy comes from. This is where I came up with the saying: be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. Once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.